With us today, we have Arianna Rudawski, Associate Software Engineer with Scientific Games, Jeremy Cook, Senior Artist with Scientific Games, and Brian Keschinger, Technical Game Designer Level 2 at Respawn Entertainment. In a second, I'm going to throw it to Sang. I'll start our conversation. I did mention up top, part of this will be led by us. We'll be asking some questions, but if you as student guests, you have questions, feel free at any time to put those in the chat. We'll also try to allot some time towards the end for any student questions that might pop up too. And we'll be sharing some job and internship openings with you a little later as well. So make sure you stick around towards the end. I'm gonna hand things off to Sang Lee. Sang, take it away.
All right, thank you, Lauren. Hi, everyone. Like Lauren said, my name is Sang Lee. I am the Career Ambassador for our tech and design community here at the DePaul Career Center. And yeah, today we've prepared this event. We've invited some lovely folks to, tell us more about their journey, their past experiences, and more about where they are working right now. So without further ado, let's begin with Brian. Brian, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Brian Keschinger. How deep do you want me to, am I doing like a whole background thing or just like?
We can do kind of like a brief intro and then
Cool.
We can get into the more nitty.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm Brian. I graduated from DePaul with my master's degree in software engineering, and I used to work at NetherRealm Studios, and now I'm working at Respawn Entertainment on the Star Wars team as a technical game designer. So it's kind of a blend of like game design and software engineering. It's kind of right in the middle.
Great, thank you. And then we have Jeremy and Arianna from Scientific Games. Jeremy, you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. Hey guys, Jeremy. I also graduated from DePaul, got a bachelor's degree in animation. Scientific Games has been my first job out of college. Started off as an intern 4 years ago, almost right now, and currently a senior artist. And it's been a great experience. Great company, great culture. So far it's been everything I could hope for.
And I'm Arianna. I've been at Scientific Games for 2 years. And before that, I also got my master's in software engineering. It was so much fun at DePaul. And before that, I actually didn't even study computer engineering. I studied animal sciences. I worked in animal hospitals. So DePaul was like my catalyst of a career change to this game development industry. And I agree with Jeremy, I've enjoyed the company culture. I'm enjoying this industry. It's been a blast. We do have some resources about Scientific Games, just to kind of explain what we do. We're in the slot and casino game industry. And I'm gonna Sang, if it's all right, can I show a video right now?
Absolutely. Please.
Thank you. And then Jeremy can explain what we're looking at.
Yeah, so I mean, if you guys are anything like me, you didn't grow up have slot machine gaming as yeah, sorry, I'm gonna make sure I'm not muted. Yeah, so you didn't grow up as slot machine gaming is your main form of entertainment or gaming, and certainly wasn't for me. As a matter of fact, I didn't really know much about Scientific Games before I graduated. Certainly didn't have aspirations and dreams of working on slot machine games. But it wasn't until I met some people at the company, got to know the company a bit more, and got to know their work a lot more, where I realized how much fun it was. And so I started applying and getting to know them even more and more. And it's been a lot of fun, and you develop a lot of skills here, at least in the art world. Arianna can speak more to the engineering side. But man, you work with a lot of current engines. We're working with all the same software as you do in a AAA title. And sometimes I just want to show people the videos of what we do because people just aren't that familiar. So go ahead, Arianna.
But if you please, what are munchkins? The little people who live in this land is Munchkin Land.
Cool. Arianna, would you mind
lot
showing of the other, just a couple of the other images that we have of some of the other IPs and titles that we work on and make? You're muted. Thank you. Perfect. So, yeah, Wizard of Oz. On the left, you obviously see 007, Bond, and then after that, Medusa. So we do a lot of like Greek themes, like Greek gods and such. And at the end there, we have a big Willy Wonka game, which is another huge IP that we work on. So a lot of fun IPs. We also do our own original titles. So yeah, just wanted to give you guys a quick little shot, a glimpse of like some of the stuff we do. And because usually when I think of slot machine games, I think of like, a couple of grandmas like hitting down a mechanical reel. So it's not all that. So that's it. Just wanted to share that with you guys before we continue. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. As someone who, even though I'm not a grandma, I am terrible at computer games. Slot games is where it's at. And I appreciate it when, panelists like yourselves, like their job, like their company so much that you want to share with our students. So I feel like this is a great start to our event. So leaving that behind, I'm going to ask some questions. So I guess what I want to start with is what made you decide to pursue a career in the gaming industry? So game design and development tends to draw people who have a passion for it. I feel like in very simple terms, it's like a student comes in and they're like, I like games, I want to pursue this, and I want to, be a game designer. But how did you decide to pursue this professionally and not at just, at a hobby level per se?
I'll speak real quick if they don't mind. At least for me, it was the only thing I knew I wanted to do. Like there was no option B. Like anytime I thought of any other career path, I didn't have any kind of gusto or real love for it. And I just loved gaming and loved drawing and loved making stuff as a kid. So it really was I had no other option. It was like, I just knew from a very young age, that's what I wanted to do.
That feels funny to me because personally, it was totally different. I grew up not playing too many video games and really didn't get introduced until I started learning how to code. And some of those intro to coding courses, they just have you make little games. It's a great way of picking up basic coding concepts. And oh my gosh, I got hooked. So for me, I was really excited to join the industry because I was passionate about the skill set itself. And the industry just ended up being so much fun. Obviously, we play with like bouncing coins and balloons and like honking horns all day long. It's a lot more fun than staring at spreadsheets or doing database management, which is also, other wonderful applications of engineering and coding. But I'm having way too much fun.
It's a little bit more of a roller coaster for me because I grew up playing tons of games. But I think when you're a kid, you don't it sounds silly, but it's like, you don't really realize that like, that's a job, like that people get paid to make those. And so I remember going to the first PAX East back in like 2010, and I didn't even know what it was. My friend was just like, hey, do you want to go to this thing in Boston? I grew up in New York. So we just drove out there, and like, I left with like such a fever for it, of like, I was just like, this is amazing. Like I met developers, people who make video games for a living. Like that is not something I had ever thought about before. And then I went to college and I was doing a lot of graphic design and print design. And I was doing a minor in computer science, but I was terrible at programming comparatively to the other students. I was just not very good at it. And it felt like a lot of students in college had prior high school experience, and I didn't. I mean, I make HTML coded like MySpace templates, but like, outside of that, I hadn't done any actual like real programming per se. And so, but at some point it kind of flipped for me. Like I flipped a switch and decided to flip my major, my minor for my bachelor's. And then decided to fully pursue the master's in software engineering at DePaul. I didn't do my undergrad at DePaul. And so as I was kind of graduating my undergrad, I was like, I really want to make video games, but I I really don't have the coding skill set. So I'm going to go get my master's and really like learn to really code. And, part of that was on me. You have to apply yourself in college. You have to put in the work. And that was a hard lesson I learned in my bachelor's program.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for your answers. I love that we have a good, just different stories, but it all comes down to, having passion and also following the skills, Brian, you acknowledging that you didn't have the skills necessary and therefore decided to do your master's to supplement those skills, that speaks volume to your passion as well. So yeah, thank you for sharing. Let's move on. So now we know y'all were passionate about the industry. Moving on then, how did you land your first role in the industry? What was the job search process like?
I'll jump in first because mine's pretty quick. I was very fortunate. I did the master's program at DePaul, and Ed Keenan does a lot of the courses there. And he was once a former Midway Games engineer and hired a lot of the people that now work at NetherRealm Studios. And so a lot of his students go to the internship program at NetherRealm. It's not like there's no like direct like handshake agreement with DePaul and NetherRealm, but the way Ed teaches his courses is very much the engine architecture that is at NetherRealm to this day, because it was Midway Games back then. So I think NetherRealm enjoys hiring DePaul students because they know exactly the skill set they're coming out with. And so I landed the internship program there. And from there, I transitioned that into a full-time position, and then eventually went on to work at Respawn. Last year, I transitioned over to Respawn Entertainment.
I would love to piggyback on that because I also had Ed, and I know those classes and I know that program. And here at Scientific Games, our code base does not look similar to what we were learning, memory systems, his linked lists. We don't use C++. That being said, I was still able to use everything that I learned at DePaul at Scientific Games, even though on a day-to-day basis, I was not dealing with the same code at all. But the software engineering concepts, they carry over. And I was also lucky to kind of be able to find a job pretty quickly after school. And a lot of that was due to DePaul and the career resources that they have. There was a DePaul tour at Scientific Games, walked around, handed out my resume, met the right people. It's all about networking, baby. We don't like to say that there's nepotism in any industry, but when you have an influx of applications and resumes, when you're hiring for a job, people are naturally going to look for names that they know or references or referrals. So DePaul's resources for that, I know, are fantastic. So you guys are all in a seminar like this. You're already making the right steps.
Yeah. One last thing on that. I always, no shame to DePaul, but I always say I got my degree from Ed Keenan. I got my degree from Ed Keenan University. Like, he is spectacular. And I did not know how to program until taking courses with Ed. And frankly, his courses are very tough. They kicked my ass, but you really learn to program. So if you're in the engineering program and you're in Ed's classes, first of all, tell him I said hi, but also pay attention and put in your work, spend the hours coding, reading all the information he gives you and everything. Soak it up.
My journey was a little bit different than these two. It was a little bit more arduous, and took me a while before I got my foot in the door. Was not a very good student, didn't put in the amount of hours required really. And that's one thing you're just gonna hear over and over, along with networking, is it's just one of the most important things. But just putting the time is just also super important, practicing with intent. Like, I applied, my portfolio just wasn't that good for a while after I graduated. And that's just because I didn't put the time in at the time. And then it took me a couple of years then of like, trying to network, finding mentors who would help me even further. And again, through networking, through a friend of a friend, I got offered a tour at SG, and I went through, and met a couple people. Most people were pretty annoyed because it's like this random stranger coming in during the office when they're just trying to work. And but I was lucky enough that one person was really kind to me, gave me their card. I had my portfolio with me at the time, and we connected, and she just mentored me for honestly like 2 years, like gave me honest, great feedback, super brutal. It was amazing. And I kept applying to SG and got turned down many times. I probably didn't even get an in-person interview until like my third or fourth time. And then I got turned down a couple times still. And then kept going to networking events, even after I think I got turned down one of them, like I said, on a Tuesday, and they had like a networking event that like coming weekend for just like prospective employees and just anyone who was interested in the genre. But so I went and just kept making friends and kept making contacts and kept working and practicing, and eventually applied again and again and got my foot in the door. So.
Oh, great. And now you are all here. That's great. And I mean, we have in the chats right now, I don't know if you've noticed, but we have a couple of students who are echoing the sentiment of, Ed's class is great. So any other students who haven't taken his class yet, maybe take note. But I am glad that everyone touched a bit upon networking. I feel like, in the Career Center, networking, it obviously is important and we want to talk about it, but I know it's not always the most popular topic. But so when it comes to networking, what are some, tips that you have for students who want to be more effective at networking? And also, is there a way to connect with folks in this industry? Is it different? Like, is networking with folks in this industry different than like other industries? Is there a more effective way of going about it?
This is a really tough one. There's so many right and wrong ways to network. I don't even want to take the floor first.
Yeah, part of me is like, Twitter's really underestimated in that aspect for our industry, and then Twitter's also kind of a shit show, and it's tough to recommend that.
It sucks, but like you got to be active on those social medias where I have echo the same sentiments. There's a lot of garbage on there, but at the same time, as someone getting into an industry, at least for artists, only speaking on the art side, like it's those type of social medias, whether it's ArtStation or Instagram, just being active and making yourself known. You don't need it. Like, of course, if you want to take it to the nth degree, people will say you need to have an entire brand for yourself and all that, which obviously it won't hurt for sure. But at the bare minimum, staying active on social medias and just reaching out and not being afraid to talk to people, even when you know you're going to get turned down.
Yeah, I know GDC is exorbitantly expensive, and it is a very privileged position to be able to go to something like GDC. One of the best things I did, which I wish I had known about earlier, was do the GDC CA program, which is the GDC Conference Associate program. So the people who help run the conference, right? The people who are helping get speakers set up and schedule rooms and stuff like that. You're working the conference and you get paid to do so. You get paid a lot. I think it's like $11 an hour or something like that, but you do get a full badge to the conference, which can be worth its weight in gold. And not to mention, people who are in the GDC CA program themselves, that's the networking you want, because those are people who are all over this industry at all different levels. The Conference Associate program is like, some people do it for 10 years, 15, they've been doing it for so long, and they're like leads and directors at AAA companies all across this business. And that was something I wish I had done sooner. It's a very competitive program to get accepted. So if you know former CAs personally, have them write you letters of recommendation. And that was something I wish I did sooner. And it's something I plan to do again in the future. Just because it's a lot of fun and it's a lot of hard work. You are working the conference, but you can also set times to say, oh, this is my preferred talk. Can I get off for this talk? You can trade shifts with people. So you can find space to go to the things you really care about. Or you can work the talks you really care about and you get to talk directly to the speaker as they're setting up. And that's a benefit as well. So I highly recommend that one.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Just conferences are huge. You like being around other people in the industry who have had success in the same field. It's amazing the amount of stuff you learn from going to stuff like that. Just putting yourself out there and connecting with circles of, you know, like-minded people is just, it might be the most powerful tool aside from like your skills and like obviously your degree and whatnot. But honestly, just connecting, like everyone's been saying, with other like-minded peers is going to be invaluable. And I don't think it's a secret to anybody. I don't think there's any really secrets nowadays to networking and whatnot. All the things that you've been being told, I think, from your professors and all that, I think is exactly right.
And Jeremy, you kind of hit the nail on the head there too. Like it's about meeting with like-minded people. It's not necessarily always, you know, obviously you want to be friends with people who have positions similar to something you're seeking out, but also your classmates are going to go on to work in this industry. And that's important too. I mean, look at Young Horses in Chicago, right? That's a studio that was, correct me if I'm wrong, was basically founded from the summer program of the DFRAG. I'm stretching my memory a little bit, but they made Octodad, and then they went on to make Bug Snacks. Like, this is a studio, an indie studio, fully supported with, I think it's majority DePaul students. And so your peers are going to work in this industry as well. So I know it's tough. Like I also don't like putting myself out there with people I don't know. I was very just nervous to do this. So it can be awkward and uncomfortable, but you got to put yourself out there.
I think something that made networking easier for me is just having a little bit stronger of a portfolio and online presence to show. There is some preparation that you can put into networking before going out and shaking hands or bumping fists or meeting people on Zoom, like we're probably going to be doing for some time. So a portfolio is going to look different for everyone. I'm certainly not the one to tell you what to make, but like you both said, there is a degree of branding that takes place before you go out and seek your company, because they're going to want as much information about you as possible, not just your skill set listed on a resume. They want to see it made. If you're making games with Unity, publish that on itch.io and make sure that you've got some sort of like, you know, GitHub pages can help you host an easy website. You can link to your Twitter. Twitter, you know, we don't love it, but there are some great game dev resources on there. I'm trying to teach myself pixel art. So I follow a bunch of pixel artists who just crank out daily material. That is their portfolio. It's their Twitter. I like to post videos on Instagram of like coding computational art things. We learn in really interesting ways too. So why not show off what you're learning? People eat that up. At my interview at Scientific Games, I remember not just mentioning my DePaul projects as I was speaking to the different studios in the whiteboard interview, but also things that I did on my own. And it seemed like they were just as interested in those as they were in hearing about the memory system.
Great. Thank you all for sharing. I am very glad that you touched upon interviews, because that was going to be my next question. So perfect segue. I guess, Arianna, you sort of already answered this, but, you know, feel free to skip it or go into more detail. But yeah, what was the interview process like for either your current role, maybe a past role? How did you prepare for it? Is there anything that now thinking back you wish you'd done to prepare better for it, to better prepare for it? Yeah.
I feel like I could talk about my failed interviews for hours, but there's a couple I can sum up. Well, let's talk about the best way to prepare for engineers. I want to say that's lead code. It's hard to talk about interview prep without talking about that. You need to make sure it's a huge competitive industry. You need to make sure you know your algorithms, your data structures. You're going to be able to talk and have a one-on-one or a one-on-five conversation with a room full of people who are likely smarter than you. And you need to be confident in what you're saying and confident in what you know and don't know. One of my number one tips for whiteboard interviews is to not lie, don't fake anything, because the people that you're talking to, they all have the answers to the question they've asked you. So if you lie, they're going to call you on it immediately, and that doesn't look good. It's something that I've heard interviewers mention, I guess more than anything else. But prepare. We've brought up Ed's classes. He likes to do linked lists, but practice your vectors and your STLs and things like that, because that helps in interviews too. Some interviews are going to be in person, literally at a whiteboard, and other places, large companies, maybe companies that run with Amazon, things like that, they have certain interview portals with their own IDEs in their like website on the portal itself. So it might be helpful to get comfortable with those portals themselves, so you don't mess something up on the tech side and end up failing the first round of an interview because you didn't submit correctly. Not speaking from experience there.
For me, the biggest things that I wish I would have known or helped me was really simple. Is I just became more confident, kind of like what Arianna is saying, in terms of like not lying or, you know, not having an answer for something. And that's just going to happen more than once. You're not going to know everything. And for me, just practicing and being more confident in myself and my work, and failing a bunch of times really just helped me prepare really. The more times you go through it, of course, it's going to be easier each time. It's no secret. But one of the things I also think that has helped me a lot too, in terms of just job search, at least at SG, we're a company that like values culture big time, is, and this might sound stupid to some people, but just being likable and approachable at the interview, having a smile on your face, and just being yourself. You know, if you're being yourself, it's going to come through genuinely. And I think if it's a fit, like, it's just going to be a great fit at that point. And that's how it kind of worked for me. Like I knew I liked the culture at SG, but it wasn't really until like I knew and could tell that their interview questions were so tailored to so many things culture related that like I really knew it would be a fit. So being yourself and just being prepared by doing the work, I think is like ultimately the hugest factor to me and to people that I see come in interview.
Yeah, I agree with all that. So I'm going to try not to reiterate it just in my own words, but I would say to tack onto that, all that, I think do some research on your interviewers as well. See where they've worked, see if they have portfolio sites, see if you can dig up some info about them to help you better. It's kind of just to help you gain some context into the interview you're kind of walking into. I mean, there's database sites for game credits these days. I think Moby Games is the Moby DB. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? It's the one with the whale on it. But there's, you know, so you can search databases that usually a recruiter, at least in my experience, a recruiter is going to give you a list of like, here's the people you're interviewing with, or at least you know who the hiring manager is. So, you know, just do a little bit of legwork there to just familiarize yourself with who you're going to be interviewing with, because they're doing the same to you. They're gathering info about you. They're checking your portfolio sites, your social medias and things like that. And it also might help you generate some questions, because that's always a tough one, is like, you want to ask questions, but you don't want to seem like you don't know what you're talking about, but you know, you don't want to feel unprepared, but it is important to ask questions. Like, you know, as a first job, you don't have a lot of leverage, but certainly more as you go into your second and third jobs, you will have more leverage, and you will be interviewing them a little bit as well. So it's just important to familiarize yourself with the people you're going to be interviewing with.
So a really, really good point, Brian. SG specifically, even on top of that, I'm pretty sure each time I interviewed, asked, do you know about our games? Do you know what our art style is like? And it's such a simple and easy thing, honestly, just to do that kind of work beforehand, you know, just to get a quick overview. And I'm pretty sure the first time I answered the question, I'm pretty sure I'm like, yeah, I know like of this game, and totally botched it. And that probably sounded like a goof because I really didn't have any idea. So definitely echoing what Brian's saying, knowing about the company and their style, whether you're an artist or engineering, what kind of like workflow they do and use is a huge, huge step up. Huge step up.
Yeah. For example, like when I was interviewing for my position at Respawn, I through some of my searches found out that Stig, our creative director, was the former creative director of God of War 3. A lot of the team came over from God of War 3. I had never played that. Obviously, I've played Jedi Fallen Order, but I hadn't played some of the other games that a lot of this team had worked on. And so I went and played God of War 3 to help prepare for my interview as well. So kind of just dig in a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it all comes down to, preparation, like good prep work for your interview. Like Arianna said, good prep work includes practicing code through Leap Code or other resources. As Jeremy and Brian both said, doing prep also means doing your research beforehand about your interviewers so that you're better prepared. And I also want to, just touch upon the likability factor that Jeremy mentioned. That should not be forgotten, because at the end of the day, there are people hiring you, not machines hiring you. So the likability factor is definitely something that either consciously or subconsciously these people are going to be taking into consideration. So yeah, thank you for sharing very good points. So I guess sticking with the interview process, but maybe talking about in the perspective of where you are now rather than as a job seeker. I'm sure all of you have either, worked, trained entry-level folks, maybe some interns, maybe some of y'all have even been involved in the interview process. What are some things that, you notice that makes candidates stand out? And that could be either during the interview process or even once they've been hired. Like, what makes an entry level, an intern, stand out in your opinion?
I can answer this pretty easily. I feel like someone who says yes to a lot of, well, when you're hired, somebody who's gung-ho, has a smile on their face, says yes to a lot of things or everything that's asked of them. In terms of someone who hasn't been hired yet, things that stand out are just strong fundamentals and just the connection at the interview room. It's always so hard, like, kind of, I don't want to go back too far in the interview process, but yeah, just making a connection at the interview room, strong fundamentals, somebody who can speak like we know what they're talking about a little bit. And again, just comes with confidence and experience and practice. But yeah, attitude, huge thing, attitude. Well, man, if you have a good attitude at the office, it will increase your chance of success at that company an insane amount, more than you could possibly imagine. So aside from like having the skills, having a good attitude every day is massively important, for not even just for newcomers, but especially for newcomers.
And that goes for online as well. Our company has been largely working from home for months now. It's hard to translate, your friendly, bubbly nature from your cube, as people walk by going to get snacks. It's a fun afternoon on a Friday at the office. Everyone's in a great mood. It's easy to love your coworkers then. But if you guys have been sitting in your homes alone for days at a time and you're staring at Teams or Slack or Zoom or Skype or whatever you use to communicate, it's hard to like show up for each other, be good coworkers, not just interpersonally, but also like work-related things. So a friendly, hey, what's up? How's it going today? Message is going to go a really, really long way. I've felt more comforted during this pandemic, thanks to my coworkers. They're all we've got sometimes, which is sad, but also fun to think about because, okay, I don't like when a company says we're a family when they're hiring, that could kind of be a red flag for, hey, we're going to overwork you. But you do want people who you could consider your friends, at least. And that's why the hiring process, likability is a factor, but it's not like they're hiring people for a popularity contest. They're hiring people that they can sit in a cube with for 40 hours a week. If I didn't get along with the team that hired me, I wouldn't want to be there. So I think one of the questions about, the interview process, how it goes both ways, it does apply, for your first job out, I would say. Scientific Games, we have a number of small studios within our studio. So I work with the same maybe 10 engineers, and there are other pods of engineers and artists and mathematicians that I know, but I don't work with closely. So when I interviewed, it was interview with this team, this team, this team. So it's kind of like football drafts. I do not have sports analogies to supply, but it kind of feels like that. Choosing your lunch table. That being said, a lot of people that work in this industry and study and love what we love are neurodivergent, and sometimes being confident in person does not come naturally. And I want to say that this industry has space for that, but we can do better. And I think that starts with like accessibility in the games, the products that we make, but also in the workforce. So as we see more of these companies doing work from home, that provides a lot more space for people with physical reasons that they can't make it into the office every day, neurodivergent people. I don't know. This industry is shifting to a more work from home state, and I'm all for it.
Yeah, we're a big culture fit first company as well, and that can't really be understated. And like Arianna was saying, it's like we also don't like the family thing. People have spoken up very much about that in our company, and I agree with them. But you're right, it's about being able to spend time together. We do spend a lot of time together, and I think if you can express, like Arianna said, not everyone could be confident in their speaking and things like that. That's a different skill set. But I will say, if you can express passion and you can express excitement, that goes a long way. And I assure you, the nerdy stuff that you love, there's someone in the company that also love that super nerdy stuff. Like if you're like the type who's like diving into Kerbal Space Program for like thousands of hours and you love that, but you're interviewing at some other, don't think it's irrelevant if you're, even applying for a casino game or something like that, right? A casino game company. People want to know that you're excited. People want to know that people just like, nerding out about that stuff too. So you never know. And I think often in my interviews, I find that, I end up deep diving on like, well, what are you playing right now? And like, what do you like about that? Or, these are more game design interviews. So that's kind of the exciting part, but I'm sure, Jeremy and Arianna, sure it's similar in that sense too, of like, well, what do you like about the art style of this new game that just came out? Or like, how do you feel about that? Or like, just kind of discussing what's going on in the industry too. Like that happens a lot in interviews.
Oh, totally. And that kind of excitement like is contagious. So being able to share things and geek out like that with your coworkers, that's all part of just having a good time together. And, we have a lot of fun at work. That's the thing here. Like, so we work hard and play hard. That's really a cheesy saying, but it's really true. Like people are trusted to get their work done, and they do. And if that's the case and you are doing that, there's a ton of time to be close with your teammates and just have a great bond. And that just makes you work together better and all that stuff. So it's great. Completely agree with what Brian's saying. Oh wait, can I say one more thing about something that's I see new people and it'll help them be successful, at least at our office, is carry a notepad. It seems like the such simplest, weirdest thing, but I see a lot of new employees, like when we're going up to meetings and talking about like the status of a project or looking at the games on target and discussing things about the current build. I see a lot of people who don't have notepads. And when you're a new person, a new employee, there's so much information, even if like you're really skilled and talented and maybe you're above your peers in terms of technical ability, whatever it may be, whether it's engineering or drawing or, animation. There's so much company stuff at the bare minimum that you'd be taking in to start off, that you should always have a pen and paper with you and writing things down. Like, I don't think I was ever without mine. And I know it was commented on multiple times or noticed by people above me. So it's just one of those things I try and push on. It's, again, I know it's a really small, odd thing, but those type of optics and those type of things matter a lot when you're new.
That goes for engineering as well. And that goes for not just your first year of working, but I mean, my boss carries around a notepad. He just got something to keep his pen clipped on so he stops dropping it. We're always taking notes. That's what's so fun about this industry. We're always learning, not just about our own products, but the technologies that exist out there. Our software is constantly, improving. There are new shader developments every year. There's more capabilities. It's very cool.
Yeah, we have talked a lot about like the interview process and being in the interview, and Yinging in the chat. I did want to address that quickly of like, try to understand what a hiring manager does, right? They go through 100 resumes and they pick 5, 10 to phone screen. And then maybe that gets passed on to the hiring manager themselves, right? Try to make it as easy as possible for the people to review your application. And what I mean by that is like, I think it's unlikely we're going to be handing in paper resumes anytime soon. So take advantage of that. Embed links into your PDF resume to your portfolio site. Don't make someone type out the URL. They can just click it and it just opens. It's great. Little things like that can help a lot. And there are several GDC talks on YouTube about how to generate a good resume for games. I definitely recommend watching those. And there's so many resources out there to design good resumes as well. There's kind of less and less of an excuse every year for a crappy looking resume. There's plenty of templates out there. So just, do some legwork into that stuff.
That's a great point, actually. That just goes with portfolios in general. There's so many resources out there for literally everything that the competition is stronger every year. And so just do your due diligence and do your homework on that kind of thing. Don't skip any corners because there's a million people out there that are, putting in the work for that kind of thing. So agreed.
Yeah, so we've gotten a lot of answers, a lot of really good answers. But I feel like all of those answers really boil down to what Jeremy was saying first about attitude, showing up, being present in a kind way, like Arianna was saying, showing passion, showing excitement, also, showing passion through, making sure I take notes, making sure I look into all these small details to make someone else's job easier. Like, I feel like these at the end of the day really boil down to, that having that good attitude. So yeah, keeping that in mind. Right now, we have gotten a couple questions on the chat, so I'm going to visit a couple of those. First is, how extensive was your portfolio when you got hired?
I can start out.
Go ahead,
Mine was not crazy, I will admit. I had to do a lot of work. Or let's just say I basically had links to a couple of new sites, like my new Twitter. It was clear that I was just starting to get online. My 3-month-old Twitter account that was full of retweets of cool game stuff. My Instagram with a couple of interesting, game devy things. But that was kind of the extent of it. I wish I had done a lot more. I wish I had done more without feeling pressured to find something related to what I studied at school. I was feeling like I needed to show my own implementation of the memory. I keep returning to this memory system, but it's a common one. When you are applying to a company in the town where you went to school, they're going to have seen that project a trillion times, especially if the professor isn't updating it very often. So maybe not extensive in terms of like quantity, but quality of your portfolio.
Definitely. Mine was as an art side or point of view. Mine wasn't overly expensive either. I had a few finished illustrations with like just some fully rendered backgrounds and a character or something along those lines, and then a bunch of loose leaf sketch work, and which is so hugely important, at least on the art side. They want to see good fundamentals. Like nowadays with digital art and just the different avenues you can go to create images, just matte painting or what have you, just paint overs and whatnot. It's really important to be able to see sketch work in the fundamentals, like I've said. But honestly, just a few pieces of each thing, if your work is good, it is more than enough. Like Arianna is saying, it's definitely quality over quantity. And sometimes quantity can be a detriment. So there's been a couple times where I was told to like take a few pieces off my portfolio and stuff like that. So definitely don't worry about it being extensive. Just make sure even if you only have a few pieces, just make sure they're good, and that can be enough.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to just straight up share mine real quick. So this is my portfolio website. I'm assuming everyone can see this, right? So this is just a Squarespace. It's just a Squarespace template. I have no idea what I'm doing. I just watch a lot of YouTube videos and tutorials and things like that. But so when I first applied to NetherRealm, obviously these 3 tiles were not here. This was a project I did on the side while at NetherRealm. This was a project I did on the side while at NetherRealm. The only thing I had, which you'll notice you probably have taken the C# design patterns course, or maybe you're going to, where you make Space Invaders with Ed Keenan or Andre, or I don't know who's teaching it these days, but there's the C++ animation engine, which was Ed's course, and this is Ed's course, and this is just a game jam. So it was really just these 3 6 tiles. And, you know, each one of these has their own little label with images and things like that, but this is not a lot, right? Like this is a voxel engine that called free Magic of Voxel engine thing. And I've gotten so many compliments on this of just like, I didn't know how to make 3D art. So I wanted to start to learn. And so I made this little voxel scene and like showed my inspiration and showed my workflow and things like that. It's just, you don't have to have a lot, but it's about presenting it in a way that shows your thought process, I think, and shows your workflow. This is just, I had never done level design before. And so I entered a free level design competition on a website called Forge Hub and built a level in the Master Chief Collection in Halo 2 Anniversary. And so, you know, I showed like, here's how I educated myself. Here's how I built here's how I prototyped. And then, you know, just, I think things like this of like showing your process, like you don't have to have expensive tools. Tools are free and available to build out a portfolio these days, I think. And yeah. So I think to answer the question is like, you don't have to have a ton.
Brian, I think what you just showed is picture perfect. Even from like an art side, if you showed my bosses that type of thing where, you know, beginning to end your process just like that, they eat that up. So definitely, if they can see what you're thinking, kind of going back to what I was saying before, how a lot of days with digital art, it's sometimes hard to tell, you know, an artist's process while just looking at a finished rendered image. So if you can go through things like that, man, it looks so good to an employer.
Yeah, and I'm going to drop it in the chat too, so you guys, it's not like a secret website. I'm like widely available.
That kind of stuff just shows you understand pipeline, and working in a game development office is the pipeline is such a crucial and critical part that a step-by-step process, being able to see into that, employers love it.
Kind of an invisible part of our portfolios too that we always have to think about are our LinkedIns. If you don't have one, that's certainly a good thing to get started with on LinkedIn to showcase your different skills, especially in game development. They have a lot of these certifications so that instead of just saying, yeah, I know Unity, I can prove to everyone on LinkedIn, I have this badge that I know Unity, C#, C++, and these are certifications that can be renewed every 3 years. So when an employer sees that, they're happy and they're going to be interested. My LinkedIn right now, I'll be honest, I'm not actively looking for jobs. I don't have a job description under my last job. I mean, the photo doesn't even look like me anymore. It's kind of an old LinkedIn, but those certifications are still up to date and I'm still getting random recruiters every week, if not every couple of days. Swatting them away. This is one of those weird luxuries you don't know is going to happen until you're a couple years into the industry. There are recruiters out there trying to poach people with a couple of years of experience, trying to get them into, you know, that next move, so that they can get a little bit of that initial salary cut too, of course. So, I mean, if that's working for me and I'm not actively looking for work, that's going to be a great tool for any engineer, or I'm sure there are art technical skills that are certifiable on LinkedIn. Get your badges.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you everyone for sharing. I feel like we have a lot of good content going on what makes a good portfolio. Thank you, Brian, for sharing your portfolio. And, you know, related to that, I feel like the good thing for students in, you know, in game design game art, whatnot, is that all these portfolios, all different professionals of, amazing professionals, they're all online and available to you as resources for you to look at when you're creating your own portfolio. So yeah, something to think about. So we don't have too much time left, but there is a question that I want to ask. We've been talking a lot about company culture, both the both of you in scientific games, sounds like you guys love it. Also, Brian, you mentioned having a great, really supportive company culture. But how do you think your company's culture impacts or influences your work or your ability to work? So how does, what aspect of the company culture itself impact your work?
Game development is a very, very collaborative industry. I work with all different disciplines every day. So I've only been at Respawn just over a year now. I joined last August. And so every day I interact with, or every week at least, I meet someone new on a different team. And it's very clear that the company hires just good people. And are striving to hire like-minded, good people in a sense. And it impacts my work because we all have to work together. You can't make you could make a game by yourself. It's been done. But that's a lot of work. And if you want to work in AAA games, you can't make a game by yourself. And so we all have to work together. I can't do everything, and I'm not good at everything, and I don't want to do everything. So it's about, the culture is about working together and being able to solve really hard problems together, because sometimes the scariest, there are plenty of times, and I'm sure Arianna, maybe even Jeremy, depending on the technical side of your art stuff, is like, sometimes I go into a day of work and I'm like, I have no idea how I'm going to solve this. I don't even have an inkling yet. I'm not even sure how we're going to approach this. And I have to lean on my peers for that sometimes. And it's a really important thing to be able to do after, you want to do your own legwork first, but once you reach that point of like, okay, I've done the research, I've looked into it, not exactly sure, kind of spinning my wheels a little bit. It's like time to reach out and ask some coworkers what they think. And maybe you need to get people in a room and start whiteboarding or what have you. But I think that's how culture really impacts our work.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure like my first 2 years was like every day me coming in being like, I have no idea what the hell I'm going to do, how I'm going to get this done. I specifically remember that as I was interning, like more than once, like constantly being like, I'm screwed. All right, just going on YouTube, looking things up. And then, but honestly, company culture to me, the way it impacts my work is it's just made me a better artist. And it's a really generic term, but it really has. We're working with so many skilled professionals who are so talented across so many different disciplines that it's really invigorating and empowering, because you have so much power like around you. As long as you feel comfortable, and it's important that you do, with bouncing ideas and talking to teammates and asking questions is just crucial. I ask questions all the time. I still do constantly. I'm still on YouTube all the time, learning. But the company culture at SG just completely nourishes that, because everyone has the same point of view. Everyone's just looking to be a better artist, a better engineer, tech artist, whatever it is. It's like everybody loves to share, and it just makes you, I can't even tell you how much stronger, more powerful of an artist I've become just from learning things from my friends at the office. So it's just massively helps your growth as a professional in whatever field you're in.
Yeah, the company culture, no matter the size of the company, big or small, it becomes the products they're making. We are the resources. I am a machine that makes video games, but I have to be plugged in with artists and mathematicians and sound designers and game designers. It takes a whole team. And if part of that machine's not working, you're not going to have a good product. I do feel taken care of and safe at my company. If I wasn't able to say that, I wouldn't stay. I've worked too many bad jobs. I have a master's degree now. I want everyone here to be able to say that. That's a really privileged and nice thing to be able to say. And fortunately, in game dev, there are a lot of people who are trying to make their companies good to work for, because they recognize that this is how they're going to make money. It's by making us happy, right? That's the game that they're playing, at least. Yeah.
I did want to start bringing this in for a landing. I know we're going to be quickly running out of time, and I just want to be cognizant of our speakers' time and our guests. Saying thank you for leading that convo. All of our students, if we did not get to your questions today, and I apologize, we did not get to everybody. I wish we could do these for 2 hours. No, I don't. That would be not fun sitting in front of Zoom for 2 hours. Forget I said that. I did include our speakers' LinkedIn pages in a message in the chat. So make sure, everyone, that you do connect with our speakers. If you have a specific question for someone, please feel free to reach out to them. Even if you don't have a question now, definitely good to connect and maybe follow up with them later. I know Scientific Games asked us to share, I'm putting a link to all of their open positions. They do have some current openings for internships, as well as a bunch of other positions. They have a little over 20 open positions for Chicago. And I'm going to share also the email for their recruiter. And everyone, I will be sending a follow-up email with all this information too. But if you did want to jot this down now to get a jump, please feel free. That's Natalie Harmon. She does staffing at Scientific Games. She asked if there's a position that you're interested in. She said that you can, as a student, as a DePaul student, you can email her directly with your application materials. So go ahead and do that. Like I said, I'll be sending all this information through email later. I'm also going to send out this exit poll, if you guys don't mind. This just lets us know how we're doing. It gives us a good idea of what you as students want to see from us for future events. I did want to again thank all of our panelists, and thank again Sang for conducting this. Any closing statements anybody would like to go out on? Well, we have a minute or so left.
Yeah, I want to say just feel free to reach out, anyone who's got an art background looking for art jobs. Like the Scientific Games internship program, it's paid. It's how I got my foot in the door, and I learned a lot. So it was a fantastic experience. I've got nothing but positive things to say about it. So and I would never have gotten my first job if it wasn't for the help of someone mentoring me. So those kind of things I'd like to pass on. So feel free to reach out.
My last piece of advice, Brian said it earlier, and it was so good. Just really get to know your fellow students. You never know where they're going to be working someday. They may be working at a company you want to work for, and vice versa. Referrals are nice chunks of change. So take advantage of your time here at DePaul. It's full of resources, and yeah.
Yeah, thank you all for having us. This was great. Yeah, feel free to reach out with anything, portfolio reviews, what have you. I was a gameplay engineer at NetherRealm, and now I'm doing design work. So if you're in either of those, happy to help. You're probably better off DMing me on Twitter. I don't check LinkedIn too often, but my DMs are open. So maybe that'll push you to join the Twitter sphere as well and enjoy some of the free resources on there. But yeah, I just give me some time. If you do message me, I am moving this week, so it might be a little chaotic, but yeah, the last thing I wanted to say is, look, I am no more special than any of you. Like I am just a dude who loves video games, and I enjoy making them as well. And, just keep pushing, and I think you'll get there, especially with the program and resources at DePaul. So, put in the legwork, get your portfolio up, get your LinkedIn and your socials ready, and, just keep applying. If the interview process can be ruthless, so just keep at it.
I gotta echo that. It's a perfect statement, Brian. I'm the same way. I'm not special. I was not a special artist who was gifted talent, with massive talent. It's all about just putting in the hours and putting in the work. So anyone can do. If I can do it, if Brian can do it, you guys can do it. So
100%. I'm also not the best. I wouldn't say that I was at the top of my class at DePaul. In fact, I recall doing, nailing the interview is going to help you a lot. If you're not able to take your studies to the interview as well, you might have some trouble. So yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Brian, I'm going to ask you if you can email me your Twitter so I can send that in a follow-up email too, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah. Everything's on brianmakesgames.com as well. So
oh, great. Okay.
Just Google my name. You'll find me.
Cool. All right, I will log off. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck.